Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're going deep into South Africa. We're going way beyond the typical travel guide stuff, thanks to some really cool sources that you guys have sent in. It's a really fascinating mix of art, nature, and local culture, so get
Yeah.
ready to be surprised.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some surprises in here for sure.
So we're kicking things off with some news that's making waves in the art world, and it's pretty big. An original Picasso is up for auction in Cape Town.
Wow, yeah, that's not something you see every day. Definitely not in South Africa. I mean, we're talking a Picasso, and this one is called Tet, which means head. And you know what makes this one really special? It's a double-sided work, and it's signed by Picasso on both sides.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's called recto verso in the art world. So you can imagine like owning a piece of art history, and then it has Picasso's signature on both sides. It gives you a glimpse into the artist process and how important both sides of the canvas were to him.
I know, it's estimated to fetch around R 8 million. Like, what would you even do with a Picasso if you were to suddenly own one? Would you display it proudly, keep it tucked away, or maybe,
Right.
think about selling it?
Well, I'd probably sell it, to be honest.
Yeah,
8 million is a lot of money.
that's true. So let's go from masterpieces to making the most of your time in Cape Town. One of the sources you guys gave us has a really great guide for spending just 24 hours in the city. What really stood out to me was the emphasis on booking your experiences in advance, especially if you're going during peak season.
Oh, yeah, that's super important. And it also ties into this bigger idea of sustainable and responsible tourism. It's not just about making sure you don't miss out, it's about helping the tour operators and businesses manage their resources better and minimizing the impact of these big crowds of tourists.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're saying even small actions can have a big impact.
Exactly.
Now, get ready for this because this is where things get really interesting. One of our sources tells this incredible story about Strangefoot, who is the last remaining elephant in the Nizhna forest.
It's kind of a sad story, in a way. Strangefoot's being all alone raises all these questions about conservation and what's best for these animals. Some people think introducing a new herd could be good for her, give her some company and maybe even help the forest. But then there are others who say she's adapted to being alone, and bringing new elephants could disrupt the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to imagine her all alone, but I could see how disrupting things could be a problem too. It's a tough situation. What do you think is the best way to handle something like this?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, there are good arguments on both sides.
Let's lighten things up a bit. Okay, the Around the Web section of the newsletter mentions some pretty quirky museums in South Africa. I have to admit, I have a thing for unusual museums. I once spent a whole afternoon at a salt and pepper shaker museum. It was surprisingly fascinating. Have you ever been to a museum that totally surprised you?
Oh, absolutely. Museums are more than just places to look at stuff, right? They're like windows into a society's values, their history, how creative they are. The fact that South Africa has this huge range of museums, from the traditional to the seriously weird, it says a lot about their culture.
I agree, and this newsletter gives us these little glimpses into other really cool places, like Wellington, which is this town that goes all the way back to the 1600s, and Paternoster, which is supposed to be this charming little seaside village.
Yeah.
And they even mentioned Splashy Fen, which is South Africa's oldest music festival. Can you imagine hearing all these local and international artists with the Drakensberg Mountains in the background?
It's pretty incredible the variety you can find in South Africa.
Seriously. Okay, so far we've gone from the art world to wildlife conservation and these quirky museums.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We've only just scratched the surface of what South Africa has to offer.
That's for sure.
There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our South African journey. It's remarkable how much we've already uncovered, from the world of art and cultural heritage to the ethical considerations of wildlife conservation.
I know, right? It's like we're peeling back layers of a fascinating story.
Mhm.
Speaking of stories, something that really caught my eye was Durban chicken curry. I'm a sucker for bold flavors, and this instantly intrigued me.
Yeah, Durban chicken curry is a great example of South Africa's diverse culinary landscape.
Yeah.
It combines all these Indian spices with local ingredients and creates this dish that's like super flavorful, but also really comforting.
Oh man, now I'm officially craving curry.
Yeah.
I've always thought there's a strong connection between food and travel. Like food is a way to really experience a culture.
Absolutely. It goes way beyond just the taste. It's about understanding the history, the traditions, even the stories behind each dish.
Totally. And this newsletter doesn't just stop at the food. It highlights some of the best things to do in Durban, like exploring the waterfront, experiencing its Indian heritage, and even venturing out to see wildlife in nearby reserves.
It's amazing how Durban manages to capture so many different aspects of South Africa's identity, right? You've got history, nature, culture, all coming together.
It sounds like Durban should be on everyone's list when they visit South Africa.
Definitely. And we can't forget about the incredible natural beauty surrounding Durban. The Drakensberg Mountains, which we talked about earlier with the Splashy Fen Music Festival, they're actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to so much biodiversity.
Wow, the thought of seeing those mountains firsthand. It's definitely fueling my wanderlust. Speaking of unforgettable experiences, the newsletter also mentions stargazing in South Africa.
South Africa has some of the darkest skies in the world, you know? It's a dream destination for astronomy lovers.
Can you imagine just lying there under a blanket of stars? Millions of light years away.
It's breathtaking. It makes you realize how much there is to explore, both within ourselves and in the universe.
It's so true. The newsletter also have this top 10 places to visit in South Africa list. With all the iconic spots like Table Mountain and the Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden, it's like the ultimate bucket list for travelers.
It makes you wonder, what is it that makes a place a must-see? You know, is it just natural beauty or historical significance? Or maybe it's more about the personal connection we make with a place that makes it truly special.
You've got me thinking now. What about you? Is there a place on that list that really stands out to you?
For me, it's got to be the Garden Route National Park. This stretch of coastline has it all. Lush forests, dramatic cliffs, pristine beaches. It's a paradise for nature lovers and adventure seekers.
And let's not forget about those penguins. Who can resist a visit to see the African penguin colony at Bulger's Beach?
That's definitely a unique South African experience.
Okay, so we've traveled from the bustling city of Cape Town to the vibrant energy of Durban, and we've explored the natural wonders of the Garden Road.
Exactly. And in our final segment, we're going to shift gears a bit. We're going to look at some of the nuances and complexities of South African society, its history, its culture, and the challenges it's facing today.
Stay tuned, there's still so much more to discover. Welcome back to the final part of our South African adventure. It's been quite a journey. From the bustling streets of Cape Town to the vibrant shores of Durban, we've seen breathtaking landscapes and artistic treasures, and even contemplated the life of the solitary elephant.
It really has been an incredible exploration. Now, as we dig into some of the historical threads that run through South Africa, our sources bring up this really intriguing question. What's the beef with Wellington?
Ooh, that sounds like there's a story there. What's the deal with Wellington?
Well, Wellington is about 75 kilometers from Cape Town, and its history goes all the way back to the late 1600s when these Huguenot settlers, French Protestants seeking refuge, arrived in the area. So for centuries, it was this thriving farming community, pretty much untouched by outside influences.
Okay, so what happened? What caused this beef?
Well, in 1840, something happened, though the details are still a bit of a mystery. But it seems to have sparked some kind of controversy or conflict in Wellington. The specifics of this beef might require a bit more research. But it's interesting to think about how something that happened centuries ago can still shape a town's identity, you know?
It's a good reminder that history isn't just dates and facts in textbooks. It's alive in the places we visit and influences the stories we encounter. We've focused a lot on the beauty and wonder of South Africa during this deep dive, but it's important to remember that the country has faced and still faces complex social and political challenges too.
Absolutely, from apartheid to ongoing struggles for equality and social justice. These are all part of the South African story.
It makes you realize that travel isn't just about escaping. It's about understanding the world around us, engaging with its complexities. It's about appreciating the resilience, the diversity, and the spirit of the people who call these places home.
Couldn't agree more. As we wrap up our deep dive into South Africa, I hope you leave with the sense that we've only scratched the surface. Every corner of this country holds untold stories waiting to be discovered. What hidden gems will you find on your own South African adventure? That's something for you to think about. What will your story be?